Hello everyone. Now, if you've clicked on this video, I assume you know what I mean by hard magic. But just in case you don't, when people refer to hard or soft magic systems in world building, they are broadly describing how well defined the rules of the magic are. Is magic strange and unknowable, a la Lord of the Rings? Or does it have clear limitations and requirements, as in the Mistborn series? It is, of course, a spectrum. For example, D&D and the Forgotten Realms sit somewhere in the middle. Arcane magic is slightly harder, with its defined spell schools and spell components, while divine and primal magic is softer. Hard and soft magic can both be good. This isn't a value judgment, it's just a stylistic thing, which can change the types of stories which are best told in the setting. So why the title of this video? Well, dragons, in most settings, are in my opinion quite vaguely defined. If we were to ask some more scientific questions of dragons, why are they so smart? How does their fire breath work? How did they evolve? Are they even physically capable of flight? How do they cast spells if they can? Most of these questions are accurately answered by, I don't know, it's magic. Which is fine for a soft magic setting, where the point is for magic to not be rigorously defined. But for settings like my one, the Verve, which has very clear rules of how magic works, if you want dragons to exist, you'll need to figure out how to justify their existence and behaviour within the rules of your world. So, let's give it a go. Let's make a hard dragon. Maybe I should rephrase that. Let's make a dragon hard. Nope, that's worse. Let's hardly make a... screw it, you know what I mean. So, first things first, what makes a dragon a dragon? If we want our homebrew dragons to be recognisable as dragons, we'll need to distill down the essence of dragon. I've come up with 4 key points which I think define dragons, but feel free to come up with your own list. So, point 1. Dragons are flying reptiles, often lizards, but sometimes more snake-like. They are definitely scaly, probably have a tail, and almost always winged. Point 2. They are typically intelligent, sometimes highly intelligent akin to the smartest humans, or even demigods, but sometimes they are just very smart beasts. Point 3. Dragons can breathe fire, or at least some kind of elemental breath weapon. Fire is just the most common. And point 4. They often have hoards. They are collectors, often of gold and valuable objects. A dragon's hoard is a valuable thing to rob, but incredibly dangerous to attempt to. So, in a sentence, dragons are powerful, intelligent, fire-breathing, flying lizards with a tendency to hoard treasure. Now, you don't necessarily need all of these to be a dragon, and certainly we could add some more, such as they're typically large, typically solitary, typically very long-lived. But I think this is a pretty good shortlist to work with. So, let's go through our list and see how we might justify a creature existing with these attributes, from a scientific world-building perspective using your magic system of choice. I'll be using the magic system of the Verve in this example, so for those who haven't seen my videos before, hello by the way, lovely to have you. A detailed explanation video is in the top corner, but for now let me give you a brief synopsis on how it works. The Verve is a magic system based on a new fundamental force. The Verve itself is a force medium, which only interacts with a new fundamental particle called pivots. When pivots move, they generate ripples in the Verve. To cast a spell is to intentionally manipulate the Verve with a specific waveform. The amplitude of the wave determines the power. The frequency determines the spell type, from high-frequency waves interacting with the smallest particles like photons and electrons, medium-frequency waves affecting the thermal vibrations of atoms, and low-frequency waves impacting pressure and whole objects. Finally, waves can be modulated. In much the same way as data is encoded in electromagnetic waves like Wi-Fi, modulations on a vervic wave encode a spell's secondary effects, rather than just a direct transfer of energy. This new fundamental force medium, and the properties of the waves that ripple through it, have huge impacts on the formation of stars, the evolution of life, and the technology of humanity. So, back to our dragon. Starting with the first point on our list, a flying lizard. Okay, so evolutionarily, we'll need to think about when dragons split from the other lizard creatures in the Tree of Life, What kind of pressures would have rewarded dragons adopting this body shape? Why would they have become so magically powerful? In the Verve, one of the great evolutionary pressures, explained in this video, is a magical phenomenon known as the shattering. In the ancient world, becoming dense in pivots was a good evolutionary strategy, and one way one might do this would be to consume other pivot-dense creatures. In that way, your diet would concentrate pivots in your body, over time making you more resistant to the shattering. To be an apex carnivore often involves having a pretty large size, and certainly being able to fly would allow for easier hunting. Perhaps one type of lizard first developed limited gliding abilities, and would use this to climb trees and then swoop down on their prey. Over time they got larger and stronger, developing full wings to sustain flight. The nature of apex predators is that they are often limited in quantity, as to survive, they need to eat large numbers of smaller animals. This means that they might spread out, so they aren't competing with each other for food and resources, similar to what some species of shark do and what some birds of prey do, only meeting up with others of their species when they want to breed. So that's flying lizards sorted, as well as the large, ancient and solitary bonus features. It also justifies enhanced vision and intelligence, like birds of prey, and their innate magicalness from being highly pivoted. For my world, it doesn't make a lot of sense for dragons to have greater than human intelligence, but having intelligence equivalent to the smartest birds works well, I think. So that's point 2 crossed off as well. Next, fire breath. Well, in the Verve, fire magic is simply a range of frequency of vervic vibrations. We already have a creature very dense in pivots, so they certainly would be capable of generating waves. But why specifically out of their mouth? Well, to generate spells, the easiest way is with a specific body part which can be vibrated. So the obvious thing is the vocal cord. Perhaps pivots are particularly concentrated in the vocal cord, so whenever the dragon lets out a particularly powerful roar, the vibrations cause a massive blast of heat, which is directed out of their mouth using their voice box and throat. I like the visual of dragons who expand their throat to prepare their breath weapon like a bullfrog, and this expanded voice box could provide a resonating chamber to boost the power of these waves even further. With stringed instruments, generally the frequency of a string's vibration is determined by the length of the string, such as in a piano. This could mean that rather than having different types of dragons for different elements, dragons change their breath weapon as they age. Young dragons, with the shortest vocal cords, breathe high-frequency waves, so psychic and electric waves. Middle-aged dragons breathe fire and ice, while ancient dragons breathe sonic booms and gravitational waves. Now that's really cool. Using the rules of our magic system, we have come up with a unique explanation of what element a dragon is. I love my zappy little baby dragons, and the terrifying ancient gravity dragons. If you heard rumours of an ice-breathing dragon, you'd be able to figure out roughly how old it is. I can still have different species of dragons, but these could be more biome dependent, rather than determining their breath weapon, such as having a dragon that's based in the ocean, or in mountains, or in deserts. We're on a roll. Last and not least, what do they hoard, and why? The closest thing in real life to a dragon's hoard would be something like a magpie nest. So what if dragon hoards evolved from a similar kind of nest? The area around such a nest would fill with bones, shell, and the shed scales of the dragons, especially if they stayed there for a long time. Most reptiles periodically shed their skin, and for our dragons, their scales would be absolutely packed with pivots. Perhaps the evolutionary advantage of building out these large hoard-like nests would be the accumulation of these resonant dragon scales, which the dragon can then use to extend their sensory range, acting like Wi-Fi extenders, or the threads of spider webs, to allow the dragon to detect intruders and reinforce their magic while within their lair. Something they would certainly need to do, as dragon scales, being so pivot dense, would be a highly valuable resource. As a dragon ages and sheds more scales, their hoard would grow, with the earliest scales in the centre and their latest scales towards the outside. The younger the dragon, the smaller the dragon, and so the more pivot dense the scales, making baby dragon scales closer to the middle even more valuable. Do adventurers dare sneak into the middle of the dragon's lair to get these most valuable scales, or do they grab some from near the entrance? Now, that's all very interesting, but I want my dragons to hoard gold, money. Well, dragons can't really buy anything. Firstly, because they're dragons, and also because it's not really a hoard if you spend it. So why are they interested in money? The currency system in the Verve, explained in this video, my coins are magical and musical. When spun, the notes produce a specific Vervic frequency. So maybe they collect coins for their Vervic signature, like how magpies collect shiny things. Notes, being small Vervically resonant flat discs, would be very easily confused for scales by a passing dragon. So perhaps, upon detecting the signal from a note, a dragon would assume that someone had robbed their hoard of scales, and would swoop down to get them back. Thus their hoard becomes filled with a mixture of dragon scales and coins. Now, dragons don't have the dexterity to pick up individual notes, so it's likely that they would scoop up loads of coins in their mouth, or by magically sticking them to their scales. Now that's really spicy. There's plenty of great plot hooks there, about maybe a village that has to switch all of their currency to old notes, so that the dragon won't sense them. And there we go. That's our 4 dragon points ticked off. We have smart apex predators evolved from gliding lizards, who use their Vervic vibrations generated in their vocal cord to breathe fire and other elements. They build hoards out of their own scales, and coins which they confuse for them. They use these scales and coins to boost their own magic while within their lair, and to sense intruders. Now that definitely feels like a dragon to me, and hopefully this example has helped you to build your own hard magic dragon. Or just think about designing magical creatures to really fit into the world and ecology. If this world building stuff interests you, or if you're curious about how this magic system works in a TTRPG, hit subscribe and check out the other videos on my channel. Big thanks to Anna for the amazing artwork. Her links are in the description. As you may have guessed, this video was made for Monster Week, the annual community event organised by Ginny D and Pointy Hat, where a whole load of creators make videos about this year's monster, which was, of course, dragons. I would highly recommend looking out for other videos from creators across YouTube. I'll link to a few of my favourites in the comments below. Thanks for watching.